said, and welcome to this week's episode. I am incredibly excited to have this next conversation and interview with Marc Lafleur, who is the co-founder and CEO of TrueLocal. So Marc, thanks so much for being here, man. You know, it was great to spend some time with you recently in San Diego, and really look forward to, not only our viewers, but also our listeners getting an opportunity to hear the advantages of what you and your company actually provide people. So, TrueLocal, as I've seen it, and obviously from speaking with you, is a company that provides grass-fed meat, organic poultry, and organic fish as a home delivery service right here in Ontario. And as you were saying earlier, the company's looking to expand. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. So just kind of circling back, like, honestly, I always say everything happens for a reason. So obviously, running into you in San Diego and now doing this is really exciting. As for TrueLocal, our biggest thing, it's all about access, right? So we do have some grass-fed products. We do have some organic products, but the biggest thing with us is just transparency. So a lot of people nowadays get caught up in these blanket terms. So with us, the nice thing about it is when you go onto our website, you'll actually see all the different claims for all the different products and exactly where they're coming from. But concept still stays the same. You can go online. It saves people trouble from having to drive out to the butchers or having to drive out to the farm. They can go on, build a box with whatever they want in it, and then we ship it out the next day. So once again, there's a lot of different deliveries. Is kind of a hot topic right now, and so are subscription boxes. But for us, we had this, this weird, unique skill set, and we spent a lot of time in the meat business and realized that there's no one who's focusing on people who want who really care about the quality of the meat more so than the entire meal or the novelty of it.
Okay, so you bring up a lot of interesting points there, but like, first off, how did TrueLocal even come to be?
It's a good question. I have no idea how I started peddling meat online. When people ask what you do, and I say I sell meat online for a living, you usually get a lot of weird looks. But I spent 5 years at the University of Waterloo. So my degree's in health, and what ended up happening is while I was in school, I had to work 4 jobs. So I had to pay my way through school. I was working as a personal trainer for a couple of gyms. And then I worked actually for Red Bull for a while. And then I used to live with 4 of my friends, and one of our buddies always had this random job, and, he'd just kind of go away to work. And, in university, you're kind of just focused on, either going out or hanging out with your friends or trying to get through your grades. So I always kind of used to wonder, like, hey, like, what are you doing? Where do you go? And he was working for this company. And I remember one day I was looking for a job. I wanted something more consistent, maybe kind of do a little less jobs, but have one that's a little bit more consistent. So he said, you know what, we're hiring a sales guy, and you talk really fast, and, why don't you give it a shot? So that company actually sold meat. So they were essentially, they would go door to door and sell meat for a year. Same quality products. So same thing. They would kind of focus on the local aspect. They would focus on higher quality, vacuum sealed, all that type of stuff. But the whole thing behind them was the door to door aspect of it. And they would sell it to you for a year. So when, essentially my job was to go into people's homes and, convince them that, buying meat for a year on a contract made sense, and they could pay for it ongoing, and we'll deliver them a whole freezer. So I did that for about a year, and then just found a lot of success there. So after I graduated, I got to the opportunity to go open my own branch out in London. So I spent 2 years opening a branch out in London. And then just kind of as time kept going, I started realizing, I'm like, you know what, this door-to-door model I'm not vibing with it anymore. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Selling meat for a year doesn't make sense for me either. My argument is that if people enjoy it, you don't really have to trick them into signing up on contracts. So kind of, that's kind of like, I guess, the straight answer. Everyone always thinks that entrepreneurialism or going into business is like, well, a straight journey. But really what ended up happening is throughout the course of that time, I got really involved in the tech space. I remember, once again, going back to university, I remember hearing that Snapchat got worth $3 billion. So let's take back here to 2012. I couldn't even conceptualize what $1 million was, let alone, 3 billion. And on top of that too, I just started using Snapchat. I didn't like it, to be honest, at the time. I wasn't a fan of it. And I remember I couldn't even begin to understand how this product, this toy, this app was worth $3 billion. But it kind of set a bulb in my head, and I was like, you know what? This is what I got to be doing. Like, I want to get into this space. There's a lot of opportunity. So that was actually our first project, was an app called Tell. So no experience, no marketing experience, no business experience. Me and my 4 roommates actually decided to get together, and we're like, you know what? No problem. We'll invest $5,000, and in 3 months we'll have a product and we'll sell it for $1 billion. No big deal, right? So obviously, total shit show. We actually did really well for up to about 6 months, considering we had no experience. but the whole thing ended eventually failing. But the nice takeaway from that, and you talk about, going into business, is failing quick and learning, and just everything I learned from it, from media outreach, trying to raise money, developing a product, things to watch out for, things not to watch out for. Just kind of took that into every project that I did after that. And then that's kind of where, when it came time to start True Local and quit my job, because we quit cold turkey, essentially we quit in January, started True Local in February. It just, a lot of it, the success that we have right now with True Local, it came with a lot of failure along the way. So once again, I'm selling meat for about 4 years of my life. And then we just realized that there's a better way to do it. We could leverage technology and some strong marketing and put a good program together that can help service a lot of people.
Yeah, and you guys have certainly done a really, really great job at, building your online platform. As I've been in there a few different times in building out your marketing. But what is it right now, for people listening? I know for myself throughout my health and wellness journey, and losing all my weight and resetting myself back to where I am today, grass-fed meat was a huge part of that. And as well, I eat a lot of organic salmon now, but what's the big deal? Like,
right.
It's such the rage right now, whether it's from, Dr. Axe or whether it's Dave Asprey, go on and on. You're hearing so much about particularly grass-fed meat. So what is it? Why would somebody go and buy a steak, at Sobeys or your typical supermarket in the US for say $10 and then go buy a grass-fed steak for, 13 or 14 or maybe even more?
Right. So there's a lot of things, and we get this question all the time. So we always make sure to go ahead and say, like, we're not doctors, we're not health specialists. Our biggest thing is this is just opinions, this is advice, this is things that we know from the industry. So grass-fed has a lot of stigma around it about being a lot leaner. Obviously, people say you are what you eat. So that goes the same with the animals, right? So they say that, cows for the most part aren't necessarily supposed to be eating, a corn diet, especially an all corn diet, which a lot of the time you'll start seeing that. So when you have a grass-fed product, you get a lot leaner, right? The cows actually end up being, I forget what the weight is, but significantly lighter. And there's a leaner animal all around. But at the same time, when you think about it, and unfortunately with factory farming and where they're trying to pump out, thousands and thousands of animals, all they care about is the yield on the animal. So they want to fatten the animal up as quickly as possible. So when you start looking at the cost, it's like any investment, right? If you raise one cow, then it costs you the same to raise one cow, but you're going to get a cow that weighs double a grass-fed cow. You can see how the unit economics start playing a role, right? So grass-fed cows just are significantly lighter, they're significantly smaller than corn-finished cows. So that's where you're going to start getting some of the pricing. And on top of that too, it's just more of a unique process. So just to clarify too, I always like talking about the difference between grass-fed and grass-finished. So when we originally started, we offered a product that was grass-fed and corn-finished, right? Because we always found that was the happy balance between getting something that's just straight grain-fed, straight corn-fed, and get really marbled. And there are people who like that type of stuff. Like people who are really into the quality meat, the marbled meat, the prime meats, you're not going to see grass in those diets. Like those are people that want extra marbled steaks. That's kind of like, say, like the far left. On the far right of it, you got a grass-fed, grass-finished product where they're just raised on grass and then hay in the winter. And hay is obviously coming from the same pastures, where you get a really lean cut that is perceived to be healthier, right? So we found that happy middle where we can get a good quality animal that's also raised properly and eating better at the same time. We just now started venturing actually into grass-fed, grass-finished, which is really exciting because there's just such a demand for it. And we actually had the opportunity to go visit the farm. And that's one of the biggest things, that the reason it took us a year and a half to get grass-fed, grass-finished and be able to supply it is because it is such a unique operation. And what's happening nowadays is technically you don't have to be saying what the animal's finished on. So an animal could eat some grass throughout its life and people will be selling it as grass-fed, right? And that's what's happening a lot. And people think they're buying 100% grass-fed, but I can tell you right now, you can take one look at a steak and know if it's a grass-fed product or not. So I think there's a lot of misconception and a lot of people are kind of being deceived. I can tell you one, or not deceived, that's the wrong word. I just think there's a lot of misinformation. So one of the biggest things is, I always say this with meat, you get what you pay for. I can tell you right now, you're never going to find grass-fed, grass-finished meat on sale. You're never going to think you're getting a deal on it. If someone's telling you, oh my God, I got this amazing place, I'm getting grass-fed, grass-finished for $4.99 a pound, there's a 0% chance it's happening. We spent a year and a half, and we know, I would argue that we've probably talked to almost every farmer in Ontario, just based in our industry. Even now, it took us a year and a half to finally lock someone down who's doing it really, really well, who can supply us ongoing. So once again, I always say, if you've got a farmer that you're going to, or you've got a butcher that you trust, keep on going there. We're not trying to take business away from them. The whole concept is for people who live in the cities or even out in the country who just don't have access to these types of products, we're not able to deliver it to them as well. So I think a lot of the pricing comes in where, once again, you see the operation, you see the farm, and you see what they end up going through, and you see the size of the cows. That was the biggest mind-blowing thing for me. You see the size of these cows, and you can totally understand how the prices start creeping up.
Yeah. So it's, what have you found out of your research, to provide the viewers and listeners with a little bit of insight? Like, what have you found to be the actual, like, scientific research around the health benefits of grass-fed meat? Because I know, I can speak for myself, there's a palpable difference in the taste. I don't find it as grainy. A typical grocery store bought steak, candidly, I think it tastes really bad, and the texture is very poor. Mm-hmm. So I found that grass-fed's a little bit more tender, it's smoother, and frankly, it tastes a lot better. But what's the actual health benefit to a consumer purchasing a grass-fed steak versus purchasing a conventional corn-fed steak?
Right. Once again, asking the scientific questions. For us, the biggest thing is, we always say, it's a lower fat content. Like, for us, you can look at it right off the bat and see the difference. You'll see a lot less marbling. Our focus at True Local is all about the sourcing. So our focus at True Local, and my firm belief, more so than grass-fed, more so than no added hormones, is where are these animals coming from? What is the process? How far are they traveling, and how are they stored? And what I mean by that is, at the grocery store, how long are they on the shelf for? The difference, if you go to a butcher shop and look at a steak there versus the steak at a grocery store, even if it comes from the same location, is night and day. So once again, I wish I had more answers for you in terms of the actual scientific health benefits of grass-fed over that, but I'm not a doctor. For us, the biggest thing is, once again, like, how are we sourcing these products? How are we able to get them to people? And once again, the biggest buzz right now around the grass-fed is you get the flavor. It's a very different flavor profile. You're either love it or you hate it. You're one of the two, right? So we have a lot of people that, once again, don't understand how grass-fed is a leaner and a different tasting cut. And people ask for, well, I want a grass-fed AAA steak, right? And AAA, obviously referring to the marbling, it's just not a thing, because the whole concept is that a grass-fed is going to have a leaner profile. So.
Yeah, of course. And naturally, that makes complete sense, right? That the quality of the meat's just going to be higher because, I think we all know, and if you don't know and you're watching or listening to this, the impacts of corn in society today and how that market, in the corn market and seed market, is controlled, and the impact that has on the animals that are fed by that is pretty dramatic. So what I'll do is I'll actually include a link in this video, at the bottom of this video, and on the post, to actually give people some insight onto the scientific benefits of grass-fed meat.
Right. Another interesting one, it's a little bit away from grass-fed, but you a big fish eater?
Huge.
Okay. So this is one thing I always this is the one thing, if I can educate people on this, it makes such a difference. So you can talk about grass-fed, you can talk about corn-fed, you can talk about chicken. I would argue that one of the biggest differences you'll see in quality is where you're getting your fish from. So we offer, the only products we have right now that are from outside of Ontario are wild-caught fish. So we have wild-caught Alaskan salmon and wild-caught Icelandic cod. And for anybody who's already tried them, I challenge you to find a better quality salmon. We spend a lot of time sourcing this. We're one of the only people in Ontario to offer this type of salmon. And one of the biggest reasons is because it's actually not going through China. So what ends up happening a lot when you're dealing with frozen fish is the market is so big, a good chunk of frozen fish ends up being shipped to China for processing and then shipped back. And you can just imagine that process. I think last time I heard it was about a month-long process. I got a really good education piece on it. It's actually on our website as well. You can actually go see some of the content. We actually went and met with our fish supplier, filmed a little documentary to talk about, how it goes. But the difference in quality between a product that's coming straight from its origin source, so for example, if it's coming from Alaska, coming straight to Ontario, or at least coming straight to North America, is so different. So I'd always challenge you to, if you're looking for frozen product, and it's frozen fish, always look on the back, because despite what it might say, coming from the East Coast, coming from the West Coast, coming from Pacific, Atlantic, whatever you're into, look on the back and see if you've got one of those product of China stickers on it, because you'll be surprised at how many of the brands that you think are coming straight here have a product of China sticker on it.
Well, that raises a good point, right? Like I find that consumers, and even for myself, can often get confused with, you know, the different certifications, the sourcing, where products are coming from, whether it's produce or poultry or fish or meat. Um, what what is it that people should look out for,
Yeah.
whether they're buying from True Local here locally in Canada, or, you know, in the US or in other countries? Like, what is it that you actually want to look for to ensure that you're actually buying a product that says what it is?
So here's the education piece. So going across the board, I would say that arguably a year, or not even 2 years ago, actually, let's go back a little bit further. 5 years ago, natural and organic were all the rage. The joke behind natural is that natural is not even really a thing, right? Like natural, what does natural actually mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? It's a vastly different thing. So things started then migrating towards the claims. And we went into that too, where we wanted to source products that were no added hormones, antibiotic free, all this type of stuff. But the reality is, and people are now starting to educate themselves on it. And we want to be the ones to actually come out about this, because a lot of companies will hide behind these claims to talk about how their products are better. But the reality is, when you're looking at beef, you can definitely go ahead and find a no added hormone product or an antibiotic free product. Once again, the feed is a big thing. And then for me with beef again is, where is it coming from? That's big. But when you come with chicken and pork, it's illegal for them to have any sort of added hormones given to them, period. So what's happening is a lot of places will be selling my no added hormone chicken or a no added hormone pork. Yeah, it's the same as the lowest end stuff you're going to find at the grocery store, but they're using it as an upsell. So we're trying to educate people a lot on just being like, look, you know what, even though we offer these products, make sure that you're aware that don't get fooled. And, for us, you'll look on our website, once again, every one of our products has an individual description. We don't just go ahead and say on our website, on our products being like, hey, all of our products are no added hormones. You'll go and look and see each one that has their individual descriptions, and you'll never find the hormone one on our pork or on our chicken, because once again, if you do say something like that, you have to then in an asterisk say, like all pork and chicken in Canada. So we don't like to see people like that. Like, that's one of the biggest things when it's coming to chicken. One of the biggest things to look out for me personally, is it air chilled or is it water chilled? That's a huge quality assurance thing that I like to look at. Air chilled chicken, you're going to get, do you know the difference between air chilled and water chilled?
I actually don't.
All right. Well, for some of your viewers who don't, so long story short, when they're actually cooling down the product, there's two ways to do it. Either they'll take the chicken and put it into a giant water bath, or they could take the well, if you do it in the water bath, essentially what ends up happening is it soaks up all the water, it absorbs a lot of it. It's a saline solution as well, so it's very salty. And then what's up happening is you're paying price per pound for your products, right? So at the store, you'll see how these products are essentially water pumped, and the napkin at the bottom is literally there to soak up all the water that comes out. So on top of that, when you put it into the oven, if anybody has ever had a situation where they take a giant chicken breast and put it in the oven and it comes out half the size, you're dealing with a water chilled chicken. So air chilled, on the other hand, they don't cool it down in water. What they do is they cool it down with air. It essentially goes down a long track and it cools down with air. You get a lot of the flavor kept into it. You get a more yellow color too. Chicken breast is not supposed to be white. So if you're buying white chicken breast, take a second look at it. It's supposed to have a yellow tinge to it because it's got all the flavor, it's got all the nutrients, and once again, you don't get that shrinkage in the oven. So that to me, like once again, if I wasn't with True Local, I wasn't shopping for quality of this, that's one thing I look for chicken. And then fish, obviously wild caught. Once again, keep an eye out for the product of China. And just the biggest thing is this. I always say that, a lot of meat people are yes men. They'll kind of just say yes to everything. You want them to say no every once in a while. Like, you know what? No, we don't offer that product, but I can put you in touch with someone who can. So we're always more than cool to say that. I think nowadays people want more so they just want transparency instead of fear mongering. I think for a couple of years, there was really, people are starting to look for, well, I want a no added hormone, antibiotic free, organic, grass fed, grass finished product coming from down the road, and I want it at my place tomorrow. Right. So our biggest thing is just kind of shedding the reality on, look, there are some really good products and that are available. And this is the truth that goes on behind the industry. It's not as scary as people think it is. With that being said, at the same time, I would make an extra effort to get the better quality stuff, but it's a lot of it's just educating yourself on what's fact and what's fiction.
Okay, well, great. And that actually raises a really good question is, if someone wasn't to use a service like True Local or another delivery service somewhere, maybe in the US, and they're going to their local butcher,
yep.
What are the most important questions that they need to ask for the meat, poultry, and fish?
Yeah, honestly, I just say ask the hard questions, like drill down on it. We always recommend this, by the way. The hierarchy of recommendations for us is, let's say you don't want to use True Local, no problem. Go to your farm. If there's a farm in the area, go to the farm, see what you can do, because they'll typically recommend the butcher that they use that you can go get their products from. So that's that's the best case scenario. Number two, go to a butcher shop. So go to a butcher shop, see, what's in your area, see where they're getting their products from. So number one, if I walked into a butcher shop, I would just ask, where is this coming from? The biggest problem with butcher shops right now is that a lot of them don't have their information on the website. So it's hard. It's easy to you kind of got to take their word for it. And with that being said, you know, the majority of butchers are on the up and up. But once again, just kind of ask for it. Is this on your website? Could I go ahead and verify this? If I were to reach out to this farmer, you know, are they going to kind of collaborate with what you're saying? Is all the beef coming from one farm? Because you don't want to end up going to a butcher shop and then having essentially be like, yep, this beef is coming from that farm. And you go back multiple times, and it's coming from a totally different source. So just always ask, you know, how many different farmers do you use for this product? That's always a good one. Once again, same thing. If you are looking for no added hormones or antibiotic free, ask them, right? Ask them if it's raised without or if it's antibiotic free. Raised without means at no point in time in their life were they given this antibiotic or this hormone, whereas antibiotic free means that it's gone through its 21-day withdrawal period like all meat in Canada has. So once again, just kind of knowing those marketing terms that people will try to spin on you is a big one. How long it's been there. Like, hey, how long, you know, how old is this meat, right? So it's fresh. How long has it been? Has it been frozen before? Has it not? Those are some of the questions that I would have no problem walking into a butcher shop and asking them. And if they can't give me solid answers, that would raise a flag to me.
Yeah. And one of the clear questions that when I went into the butcher, one of the clear questions I asked, I said, is this grass fed? And they said, yes. And I said, okay, is it pure grass fed? And they said, no, it's actually finished on corn. So I think that's a really important element for people to understand is, yes, it's grass fed. And you do want to understand, is it finished on grass or finished on corn or finished on something else? But, you know, those could be some other added questions to help people understand the integrity of what they're actually buying. For
sure. And that I'm surprised I didn't touch on that, but that's the biggest one. Honestly, when people say, is it grass fed? Okay, well, is it grass finished? That's the biggest thing. And then once again, you know, is it grass finished? Okay, well, cool. Is it grass fed as well? So just be like, look, I'm looking for a grass fed, grass finished product. And then ask the questions too, because they should be able to answer. So like, okay, so in the winter, how is it finished on grass, right? If you're talking to the farmer, they'll have a really good answer for you and explaining how they bale it all up, how they get their grass into their bales, all that type of stuff, and turn it into hay. So you'll be able to tell pretty quickly. I always say trust your gut, right? If someone looks like they're you know kind of misleading you, maybe grilling a little bit more. But that's a good question. If you're gonna ask for grass fed, make sure you're asking if that's what you're looking for. If you do want a grass fed, grass finish, make sure you're asking for that.
Yeah, that's great. And what other recommendations would you have for people around actually finding the proper meat for themselves? So can you actually get like decent products at a typical grocery store or not?
For sure. Absolutely. It's just all one of those things that, you know, everybody wants to eat off the king's plate, right? So they'll go to the grocery. It's a growing section at the grocery stores. Like you'll see it. There are some good quality products there that are organic or that they'll give you a lot of descriptions on it. They'll say raised without, they'll say all these types of things. It's just, once again, like I can't stress this enough. You're just never going to find a deal on meat. If meat is on sale, like I implore you, I will actually send you a box. Like if you reach out to me and you're telling me that you're buying meat on discount at the grocery store, I'll send you a box just to keep you away from that stuff.
There's a reason it's 50% off.
There's a reason. So I speak out against it a lot. I've always said, look, like you guys are spending extra on your data plans. I don't know about you, but I go over every single month, 20, 30 bucks. I stop at the corner store. I grab stuff I shouldn't be grabbing. I spend extra money in gas. I get an extra cable package. Yet people don't want to spend $15 a week more on getting better quality product. This stuff isn't astronomically more expensive. We're talking a couple dollars here a pound, right? So I would highly, highly, highly recommend that if you are going to the grocery, the only option you have is to go to the grocery store, it's no problem, but just go to that section that has, you know, the better packaging, the better product, the better brands. It'll make a big difference, and you'll see the difference immediately.
Yeah, and it's great. You know, I can really hear the passion that you've got for this. And what do you actually see? You know, I'm a firm believer. More people need access to this type of food. More people need access to better food. What's the plan for True Local in Canada?
Right. So genuinely, we want to change the way people are shopping for meat, period. There's obviously massive environmental impacts. And I'm not going to stand here and say that we're, you know, crazy righteous for all this type of stuff. Don't get me wrong. We like to operate a business, but it is kind of cool to be able to operate a business that does have a good impact. You know, factory farming now is the biggest contributor towards global warming. So we figured that, and this is something that we stumbled upon almost a year into True Local, but, you know, why aren't people raising the animals in Ontario, packaging them in Ontario, and then having Ontario people shop for them? We have some of the best, like hands down, some of the best beef in the world. We're really, really lucky here. So we want to change the way people shop for meat specifically. We're not going to be venturing into other products. For us, it's just about getting people that quality meat. And we want to make it so that you're able to go online and find awesome farms and awesome suppliers in your area and order directly from them. So that's the game plan. We're looking to expand across Canada. We want to become the main player when it comes to, you know, finding a better, more sustainable, higher quality source of meat for people, regardless of what province they're in.
Got it. So right now you distribute, is it all throughout Ontario?
Right now we distribute anywhere in Ontario.
Anywhere in Ontario. Okay. And what's the future plans for True Local?
Future plans are definitely look like out west. We've definitely been getting a lot of requests to be heading out west, which I think is a perfect fit for what we're trying to do. We've done a lot of market research, and we've seen that there's obviously a massive passion out there for local farming, sustainability. So right now it's kind of a bit of a toss-up for which province we're going to head out into, but we've got some very, very short term, in the short term, have some plans to expand out west.
Okay, got it. And then going a little bit more to the personal side of things, like what's a big a big challenge that you've had building True Local, and how did you actually work through that?
Man, you know, it's funny you say that. I feel like I always hear, you know, you always hear these glory business stories and everyone's winning and it's great and you hear it's good, or you hear these over glorified like horror stories. It's just a grind, man. Like it really is. Once again, I've gone through a lot of different phases in my life. I'm 27 now. I've just been fortunate enough to have a lot of experience early on, from failing at the first business when I was 22 to, having to build up a branch by myself, doing interviews in a Williams Cafe, then opening an office, and then having 35 employees to manage, to then kind of giving it all up to going back to being a grinder. Like we did everything. So my partner and I, we did everything. We started the business. We did everything from trying to raise money, which took a long time. We did everything from work the functionality of the website, find developers. We would do the booth every single night. Every night we do a booth at a gym. Then we have to go pack the boxes. Then we delivered the boxes. We did all that type of stuff for 10 months. So honestly, man, like business, I always say, like you get kicked in the nuts every single day. Like every single day you wake up, some fire has happened that you're then able to pull out. But the whole thing that makes it all worth it is kind of like when you get those little victories, right? And I look back on it now, and we're only a year and a half into business. But if I were to show you pictures or just show you what we were a year and a half ago, looking back on it, and every once in a while, every few months, getting that feeling of like, wow, like, okay, we're making some stuff happen. That's what makes it all worth it. In terms of the challenges, honestly, the most challenging thing for me, and I think I wonder if people can relate to this, it's the mood swings, the ups and downs. Not like the actual mood swings, but it's the ups and the downs, man. I couldn't handle it for a while. Like for me, it was really difficult because I like consistency. I like feeling good for a while, or if I'm going to feel bad, let me just feel bad for a while. But for me, it was hard to go to bed, wake up, feel like, all right, I'm going to crush today. This is great. By 10 a.m., oh, wow, we're going out of business. Okay, well, so much for that. Then by 2, you get a giant win and you're like, oh, this is really cool. Like, this is great. Let's all go celebrate. And literally then 4 o'clock comes around and it's like, oh my God, like whatever happened, right? So that took a long time to adjust to. But now, once again, like you're always learning, always evolving. I've learned a lot about myself, just kind of how to like reflect and self-analyze things that are going on. And one of the things I realized is that you just got to kind of maintain that sense of, ups and downs are going to come. Try to stay in your lane the entire way. Celebrate the ups, minor, don't get too down about the downs, and just kind of stay consistent, because like everything's going to bounce back. And that's one of the things that was a challenge originally for me. And now it's kind of starting to really like fall into place, and I'm starting to feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? With my background in real estate, I can certainly relate to that. You get on a big high, and then, you may work with a few clients that, let's just say, it doesn't work out very well.
Yeah.
And then you get, into some low points. And, I've been fortunate because I've been in real estate for 13 years, and I've been able to sustain a really great business throughout that whole time. But that was a real skill that I learned. And what is it that you actually learned to give you that level of resilience to keep going after building this great company?
Honestly, you talk about it. I think the one best thing about being a business person is you really get a lot of confidence in yourself. And I think that's like the one thing that you can't get anywhere else. Like I used to play sports, I played university sports, and you get a different type of confidence when you do that. But being able to pull yourself out of the muck and like being able to pull yourself like off a bad day and get back into it over and over and over and over and time after time after time after time, it really does kind of give you a certain chip on your shoulder. And once again, maybe not everybody feels that way, but I'm still in the process of learning more about myself and this journey every single day that goes by. And that's just one thing I look at now that I really feel, I just feel good about it. I feel better about a lot of things. Every day we still have like minor defeats. Like every day it comes by, and for us, it's just like, now it's, instead of getting bummed out about it, it's just how do you sidestep that and how do you sidestep this? And it's like, all right, cool, minor setback. people always take, one step forward, two steps back. I don't like that. I want to take two steps forward, one step back. So for me, it was a lot just about, once again, like going through the process, the things I've learned in the past year, really learning to self-reflect and really learning to understand why things are happening, figuring out how you can try to avoid those things or make them better, right? And once again, that's just a skill set that I think I've developed just going through a business. I'm sure a lot of people, real estate, tech, athletes, anybody, any profession really, like it just kind of gets you that resilience, and it gets you, into that place of figuring out what you're capable of and what you can and can't do.
Yeah, that's entirely accurate, right? It's just gives us a really good, strong gauge of what may be missing for us to put in to actually expand our business and expand our character. I'm very big on expanding my character and having other people expand theirs, because I'm a firm believer that our business will grow to the extent that our character does. If we're not actually at work on who we are and our beliefs and our limitations and our strengths and our attributes and those things that really serve us, but if we're not constantly working on that type of stuff, as business owners, then you're probably going to stay stagnant unless you get really lucky with something.
And for sure, and I think it goes hand in hand. Like, once again, I'm sure people can attest to this. Like, if you're actually going to start a business, like a startup, like a grind that you want to build into something, it takes all of you. Like, all of you. Like, I've become such a different person, for good and for bad, just because my entire life revolves around our business, right? So day in and day out, it's all about True Local for us right now. And I think trying to separate like yourself from the business, I can't do that. Like, I know a lot of people talk about you got to separate your things. I can't do that. I feel like if I separate too much, then, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like me. Like, I think True Local's become a part of me right now. So I think the personal development comes by giving your business everything, which sounds cliche and it sounds cheesy, but when you're all in on something, like it's the most important thing for you, you're bound to develop with it. Right. So it's funny because I watch True Local grow, and I feel like I can watch myself grow at the same time. And just like I said, I keep coming back to this, but regardless of anything that happens, I would suggest everybody just try getting into business, because the things that I've learned in such a short period of time, I wouldn't trade. Like, it's the most valuable part of this entire thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, on that note, I'd love for you to share with everyone, what was your experience? You guys were recently featured on Dragon's Den, and for our friends down in the US, that's the equivalent to your Shark Tank. But tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so I love to raise money. Like, I love it. I love to pitch business. I like to talk a lot. Like, I'm sure you can tell, I talk fast. So it's funny. So I've had a lot of success raising just angel capital, raised over $1 million for various businesses. So I really get excited about it. So looking at Dragon's Den, obviously it's an amazing PR opportunity. I grew up watching Dragon's Den. I remember watching it, however many, season 12. Yeah. So I remember watching it, 10 years ago. And for us, it was an awesome PR opportunity. But once again, you talk about the personal development. For me, it was kind of like that final stage. Like, it's definitely not going to be the biggest pitch we ever do. And it's not going to be the most valuable or anything like that. But it is I would say it's got to be one of the most pressure, because once again, they're almost waiting for you to kind of stumble so they can start featuring you nationally, right? So for me, it was kind of like, this is a really cool growing opportunity to see, like, am I full of shit? Like, am I, if all these times I've been raising cash, like, is it because it's easy? It's easy for me to sit behind closed doors in a boardroom and convince you why this is a great opportunity, but can I slow down? Like, can I go ahead and say it on stage and, not mess up and just do that? So for us, it was a really, really, really good personal growing opportunity. Nerve-wracking as hell. Like, I can tell you that right now, of course. I hate waiting. I'm not a big waiting guy. But I must have watched every single episode of Dragon's Den multiple times the months leading up to it. So crazy process. Essentially, we went through the auditions, and that would have been back in April. So like last April, went through the auditions, got a call back actually, no, sorry, let me take that back. Auditioned in February, then got called in to actually film the episode in April. So you pitch the Dragons in real time, and then the season doesn't air up until the following September. So it's just a waiting game. It's a waiting game the entire time. It's a steel trap. You don't know what's going on. You're essentially left in the dark up until they give you a heads up that, hey, you know what, you're going to air. So it was an amazing experience for us. And once again, those personal development, those growth experience, I'll really always remember that, just once again, kind of stepping up to the plate and being able to go on there and kind of hold it all together and not shit the bed, I guess.
Yeah, it's a big deal to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, it was, like I said, like it was just one of those things that now I'm able to say I was able to mark it off the bucket list. Obviously, the help that we got from it was amazing. The PR that we got from it was amazing. That was just my personal experience with it. But as for the business, it was amazing. Don't forget, we still sell meat in the mail, so that's still a pretty hard concept for some people to grapple with. Having the I guess the credibility or the authenticity that Dragon's Den brings is you can't buy that. And for us, it was really like it was a really big tipping point for us to get more mass adoption, more people being like, hey, this is something that's normal, it's a legit thing. So it was really good. And actually, make sure to stay tuned because we are going to be on a follow-up. They came and filmed one of those Where Are They Nows, and that's going to air April 5th. So make sure to if you want to see where we're at since that period, we'll get a full dive on April 5th.
Okay, and then my next logical question is, what happened with it?
The deal, we did a deal with Michelle Romanow. So Michelle Romanow is now working with us. She's been absolutely amazing. We're working with her for our digital marketing ads. We're working with her with our plans for expansion. We meet with her about once a month, go over everything, show her where everything's at. And it's just really good once again to have that sort of endorsement. So really happy with how it ended up going. And once again, just personal development. Like I get to work with a dragon now, right? So it's really cool to have that, see that sort of experience and see what that world is like, right? Because that's going to elevate me. Every time I go to a meeting, I want to make sure I'm on point. I want to make sure that I'm able to impress. So it, once again, just personal development as well as the business. As the business is growing, it forces me to step my game up.
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome, man. Well, look, let's step into the lightning round. I got a few different questions for you.
Let's do it.
What book are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm reading a book called Rocket Fuel, which I highly recommend anybody who's trying to get into business get into. It's just about the 1-2 punch of having a visionary and an integrator work together, and how alone it's doomed to fail. So find that person who's essentially your doppelganger and build a business together. Really good book.
Who's the most influential person in your life?
Oh, that is a good question. Most influential person in my life right now would have to be honestly LeBron James. And I say that just because I like winners. Like, honestly, I can idolize anybody. One of the things I watch the most are just documentaries about anybody successful. I don't care if it's business, rap, I don't care if it's sports, but LeBron James right now, the guy's king of the world. And he's a master of his craft. So anybody doing that type of thing right now, I idolize a lot.
Got it. And what is something completely badass about you that nobody even knows about?
My skydiving license.
Okay.
Yeah. Amazing. When skydiving, so it was in summer. I was in university, and I have no idea how it happened. I was actually between that and downhill mountain biking, and for some reason I was like, you know what, this summer I'm going to do something. I'm going to go out and do it. And I didn't even have a car. We actually ended up, I think I bussed out there for the first time. It was 2 hours away, and just went there, did 13 jumps, and then got my entry level skydiving license.
That's incredible. And if people want to find you, where can they find you most frequently?
Yeah. So our website for True Local is obviously www.truelocal.ca. Also, I always love fielding emails. I love talking to people. I love connecting. If any of this resonates with you, whether it be on the personal side, the business side, you can get me at Marc, MARC, at truelocal.ca. So that's TRULOCAL.ca. There's no E. And on Instagram, you can find us at True Local. So at TRULOCAL.
So awesome, man. Well, look, thanks so much for being here today. And for our listeners and viewers, I really hope that this video, an interview with Marc, has been really educational for you. And if you got any questions, reach out to Marc, reach out to me, and watch out for the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thanks, David.